it took me a long time to realize I'm not a speaker. I'm the CEO of a speaking business.
Okay.
I'm a business person, and entrepreneurs need to think that way, that you are the CEO of a blank business. You're the CEO of a gardening business. You're not a whatever you do. You're the CEO of a something business. You are a business person. You are running a business. You want to make a profit.
Hello and welcome back to the Ignition Path Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Goodknight. I'm happy that you joined us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if anything that you hear during this time that you're with us, and thank you again for being with us. If anything you hear resonates with you or someone else you may know, don't forget to hit that little share button and get it right over to them. Today, I've got a guest that I've been extremely excited to talk to. In our pre-call, he shared with me some really cool things that I just really connected with, from me being a voiceover actor and him being in the world that he came from, and then what he's doing now. I just cannot wait to introduce you to him. So I've got Bill Strainton on the podcast. Bill, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Kyle. How about you?
I'm doing great. If I'd be doing much better, I'd be bubbly, right? No.
I've been looking forward to this as well. This is fun.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. What's that old saying? Fake it till you make it, right? How I'm doing? No.
Yeah. I've got friends who they don't like to fake it till you make it. They just say act as if.
Okay, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Act as if you already know what the hell you're doing. Right. That's how I learned. That's how I taught myself how to ski. Yeah. I remember when I first started snow skiing when I was in high school, I had no clue how to do it. And the lessons just didn't fit with me. And I said, you know something, I'm just going to go down the hill. And then the people on the Olympics, they do it like this, and they just jump sideways and they stop. And that's what I did. And I learned that way.
Wow. I learned to ski less than a year after I broke my left leg so bad that my doctor told me if I ever break it again, I'll lose it.
Oh my gosh.
And then I moved to Portland, Oregon, and joined the ski team.
Well, luckily I never really hurt myself too bad skiing. I did land on my face one time, and I think that's where my broken nose deviated septum came from. But as you can see, it's actually fixed. I did get that fixed.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like something that Michelangelo would have sculpted.
Yeah. I blew my Achilles out playing tennis right before ski season one year. And I was worried because we always went on a ski trip for spring break. And I asked my doctor, I'm like, am I going to be able to ski? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, really? And he's like, if you hurt yourself skiing, he goes, that Achilles is going to be stronger than your other one. And you got that boot on. You can, we'll loosen up your bindings just a little bit. He's like, you're going to be fine. I'm like, cool. He's like, I'm more worried about your knees.
I'll bet this isn't how you thought the podcast was going to start.
Oh, hey, I like to. You never know. I mean, that's the one thing I like about my podcast. It's my podcast. We can talk about skiing all day, and I'm like, fine, people just listen, right? But no, we definitely want to get into your
what
path.
Entrepreneurs need to know.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to have that connection, and that's honestly the one reason why I podcast is the connection. I was speaking with a gentleman earlier today, and we ended up talking, and we have a very similar background. He's a first responder. I'm a first responder. Right. He was in sales at one point in time. I was in sales, and we just had this like really weird synergy like discussion. And come to find out, he loves to connect with people too. And I said, that's what my podcasts are all about. I love connecting with people. Yeah. My network now, because of podcasting, is so great. I just introduced two people today that were guests on my podcast a year apart. And I finally got to introduce them because of them just like all of a sudden getting, being a part of my world. And I'm not saying I'm the ultimate connector, but, the more podcasts I get in, the more connections I can make, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Bill is on today. He's got a very unique story. I don't know if anybody can see what's going on behind his head there. He's got a couple of couple of gold things on the shelf. So he has a very unique background, which has a little of its own entrepreneurial path as well, but he does now do something that is truly entrepreneurial. And Bill's going to tell his story. Bill, go ahead and take it over, and we'll get into the show and stop talking about skiing for a little bit.
Well, it's nice of you to bring in my little Emmy awards there. There are four of them. I'm not sure if all four are showing up in the shot, but at least
three. I can make it bigger, and they will.
That's okay. That's fine. No big deal.
That's the beauty of post. You know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I worked in television for a long time, about 20 years or so. For 15 years, I produced a comedy TV show here in Seattle, Washington. We were also syndicated. We were on Comedy Central for 2.5 years and had a few other syndication deals. And we did well. My team won over 100 Emmys. I won 29 of them. So I've got a few up here, a few more downstairs, some scattered around the house, and 10 broken ones, a bag of broken Emmys in the garage because we had an earthquake here in Seattle a number of years ago, and those things break. Those suckers. That is not a well-designed statue. And
The globe, I think, is that the weak point? The globe where it touches the hand?
The globe, the wings, and the ankles are weak. So you just tip one of those over and they shatter like a Fabergé egg. So I've got literally have a bag of broken Emmys in my garage, which somebody told me once, if I ever write my memoir, that's the title.
There you go. The bag
Emmy.
of broken Emmys. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, it was a wonderful experience. We were number one in our time slot for 10 straight years. I couldn't have imagined a better job for myself. And just as we were wrapping up our 15th year on the air, we were doing great. Number one in the time slot and making money. Everything's going well. And I foolishly got a little cocky. I thought, well, things are going really well. I'm going to buy a new house and a new car. And I did that. And a month later, we got canceled.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, as all your viewers and listeners know, sometimes stuff happens. You think you've done all your due diligence. You think you've planned everything down. And all of a sudden, the universe decides that, no, you need a little kick in the pants.
Yeah. No, when it comes to those days that you were back in there, the Ignition Path podcast is all about how entrepreneurs have gone through their path of
Right.
where they're at now. And we know that hindsight being 2020, you've probably moved on, and I don't know if you tried to get into more stuff back then and try to get back into TV, or if you just found that as that moment that you're like, hey, I've got this passion, or there was things that I was doing inside of the production world that was very entrepreneurial, and it's a very easy transition. Talk about that time in the times that you were in the production world that you felt like an entrepreneur, even though you were probably surrounded by, major places that do TV and stuff like that. Major, what's the right term for those
studios,
companies,
TV
studios?
and
Yeah.
It was somewhat entrepreneurial in that I was the executive producer of the show. It was a small staff, anywhere from 10 to 12 or 15 people, depending on the year. And we were pretty autonomous, pretty independent. The station really didn't know what to do with us. We were the NBC affiliate in Seattle. And so we were kind of our own little unit. And within that unit, we had a lot of autonomy. I mean, I was the last person to approve the scripts before they went on the air. If it made it onto the air, it's because I said so. If it didn't, it's because I said no. So there was a little bit of that. Much like all entrepreneurs, I was responsible for budget. I was responsible for staffing.
Okay.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs don't have full-time staff, but they may have virtual staff, VAs. I don't mean like AI or anything, but
yeah. So you're still like a small business, basically, within the studio.
Basically, a small business and responsible for the creative decisions and for guiding a team, an incredibly creative team, and that's a whole different kind of leadership.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've studied leadership. I've spoken about leadership. Leading a creative team, and I would argue that anyone who leads a team is leading a creative team, whether they know it or not. And if they don't know it, they're missing out on a gold mine by not tapping into the creativity and innovation that's already existing in their teams. But leading a creative, innovative team is a different skill set. It's similar to regular leadership. It's like if there were a Venn diagram, it's a huge overlap in the middle.
Yeah.
But there are a few special skills that you learn along the way. So yeah, it was at once both semi-entrepreneurial, but also I was an employee. I was an employee of a broadcasting facility. I got my paycheck every 2 weeks and things like that, which a lot of entrepreneurs can't count on.
Right.
It's a mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make also, by the way. They pay themselves when there's money.
Yeah, instead of trying to, yeah, exactly. One of the things that you brought up was that leadership thing, and and you mentioned about when you speak on leadership, and and that's where the path, the ignition path is going to take us today in this conversation, because even though you were what you were back then, how long have you been since when you left that studio?
It's been 25, 26 years.
So 26 years. Now, did you go back into studio work then, or did you start doing the more natural, your own business after that?
Yeah, I did my own business. I did have a side company of my own with a business partner, doing humorous corporate training videos. I didn't particularly care for that business. I liked making the videos. I just hated everything else about the business. And that's just there's nothing wrong with it. It was just wasn't my thing. But it meant that when the show was canceled, when they canned us all, I had income. So that was nice. That was a nice buffer. But then I wanted to develop a buffer for that buffer. And that's when I got into my speaking career, which is what I've been doing for the past 20 some years.
Wow.
And it was interesting because even now, I'm not sure there's any place on the planet I feel more comfortable than inside a TV studio.
Okay.
I just love the feeling of being in a TV studio. Aside from a reunion show we did 10 years after the fact in 2009, I haven't done any TV production. I was kind of spoiled because it was an amazing show. It was a comedy. I got to work with, people like Jerry Seinfeld, Ellen DeGeneres. We were her second TV show ever. We literally invented Bill Nye the Science Guy on my show. He was my lowest paid writer. One Saturday, day of the show, a guest canceled last minute. Johnny Depp was going to be our guest. He had to cancel. And Bill Nye said, maybe I could do something with liquid nitrogen, which scared us all.
That's very good. That's a very good imitation of his voice.
It's uncanny, isn't it?
It is. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just flashed me back to my youth.
Scared us all, but as all entrepreneurs know, sometimes you just have to you've got no choice.
Right.
I mean, we shoot in front of a live studio audience. There's going to be a live studio audience here tonight. We've got to do something. And so we put him on. He was just meant to be a place filler. And he became a cultural icon. Just a few months ago, I was in Los Angeles with him as he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
That's fantastic.
It was a great show. It was wonderful. Got to meet all kinds of celebs and hang out with cool people. We were huge in Seattle in the 90s. So the people we hung out with were the other people who were huge in Seattle in the 90s. Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden. I mean, that's who we... So it was really, really cool. And it's hard to go from that to anything else. You kind of get spoiled.
Right.
So I didn't really want to do any other TV. But by that point, I didn't want to move to New York or LA. And there was nothing else, any place, you can't, what am I going to do? Go do, be a news writer or something after that? No, I'm not going to do that. Here's the mistake I made for a long time. And I think this might be relevant. For a long time, I was looking for, okay, what else can I do? Because I didn't really like the video production company. It was making money, but wasn't what I wanted to do long term. And what I found, Kyle, and maybe you've had this experience, maybe you haven't, but I was really limiting my thinking as far as what are my skill sets? Like, what am I good at? I thought, okay, I could write jokes. I wrote jokes for The Tonight Show while I was doing my own show. I was a monologue joke writer for The Tonight Show at the same time. Okay, I can write jokes. Well, that's a kind of limited way to make a living. I can produce a comedy TV show. Well, outside of New York and LA, there aren't any. Mine was it. And I thought, well, okay, I'm a TV producer and a joke writer. And that's it. That's the narrow lens through which I was looking at my experience. And I was trying to think, okay, what can I do that fits within that lens? And one of the things I talk about now, primarily I talk about innovation, creativity, how to think differently. That's my main niche. That's pretty much what I do. I wrote a book about it. So I realized I'm looking at my experience through too narrow of a lens. And I don't think I'm the only one who's ever fallen into this trap. But when I finally was able to broaden my blinders a little bit and look back, I thought, wait a minute. Over those 15 years, I gained a lot of expertise in leadership. I led a team for 15 years to incredibly high, #1 ratings, multiple Emmy awards, I learned a lot about leading a creative team, as we talked about. And I learned a lot about innovation on demand, because our job literally every week was to be innovative on demand, whether we felt like it or not. So I learned how to do all those things. Well, those are valuable skills. I mean, those are transferable skills to the corporate world. That's something that I've got specific expertise in, but I wasn't seeing it. I was again defining myself way too narrowly. Once I opened it up, then all of a sudden there was a whole world of possibilities. Okay, like if I'm looking at, okay, who needs a TV producer or a joke writer? That's a pretty small universe.
Right.
But who could benefit from some expertise in leadership, creativity, innovation, looking at things differently, seeing possibilities that other people miss because they're looking in the wrong place? Well, that's a pretty broad universe there.
Right. Now, how did you, when it comes to when you've realized that, were you already in the speaking world? Were you already doing stuff that way? Or was that part of the switch that took you away from the, the side business of production into, okay, when I made this switch, now the speaking world opened up for me? What was that incident? What was that book? What was that video you saw? Like, what was the switch for you that switched on that light bulb to expand that?
That's a really good question. I already was speaking for a few reasons. First of all, in addition to being the producer of the TV show, I was also in the cast. So I was on TV every week for 15 years in Seattle. And when you're on TV, and you know this because you've been involved in broadcast and voiceovers and talent work and that sort of thing.
Right.
When you're visible to the public, you get asked to speak anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Rotaries, Commerce, you get asked to MC award shows or things like that. So I was used to speaking in public. And so once the show went off the air, and even while the show was on the air, I would book keynotes for myself, or not really, well, we called them keynotes, but it was really just like, here's some behind the scenes stories. I would tell fun behind the scenes stories. And then eventually I started applying some leadership lessons to those behind the scenes stories. So there'd be a little bit of content. It wasn't just, a funny trip down memory lane. So I started doing that, but then all of a sudden I started getting inquiries to speak outside of the Seattle area, outside of the Pacific Northwest. Well, like I said, we were syndicated on Comedy Central, but that was in the early days of Comedy Central. That wasn't really, like, everybody in Seattle knew who I was and knew the show. Outside of Seattle, not so much. So I'd get booked in Austin, Texas, or Kansas City, or Detroit, or someplace like that. And most of those behind the scenes stories, it didn't resonate.
Right.
Now, some of them did, because Bill Nye was a nationally known figure, and Jerry Seinfeld and Ellen DeGeneres and, people like that who I'd worked with. Okay, those stories would work, but I had to expand my thinking. And so I was already speaking, but that's when I really started to think seriously about, okay, what can I offer that's not dependent on Almost Live? Almost Live was the name of the TV show.
Gotcha.
It's not dependent on that. And so that's where I've landed. And I still use stories from Almost Live. I still
absolutely.
talk about the invention of Bill Nye, because there's some really good takeaways there. But now it's much more universal and customized also for each particular audience.
Sure.
So it kind of happened in conjunction with the speaking career.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know, because every entrepreneur, they have these eye-opening moments or these aha moments. For myself and the podcasting world, I had been podcasting the wrong way for so long, and I never really wanted to be a host. I'm like, no, I'm the producer guy. I'm the voiceover guy. I'm the one that does the sound behind the scenes. And then somebody talked me into being a co-host. And then that led into, wait a second, I do have some stuff to say. And then it led into the topics that I'm passionate about. That's why I have 3 podcasts of my own. I'm passionate about helping people grow their business. That's the Ignition Path. I'm passionate about first responder mental health. That's Elevate. And then we just started a new one about the clinical side of EMS, where we can really expand on the true background of 30 years in the healthcare field. But all of that still boils back to, I'm not want to be braggadocious, but like, that's kind of leadership. Like me, like realizing that Yeah, finding the people that can be on a different podcast with me or helping people with their podcast, that's its own little entrepreneurial like leadership path. And that's why I'm very, very happy to say that I'm a self-made entrepreneur. I do have a full-time job, yes, but the beauty about my first responder world is I work only every 3 days. So I took Monday off for a procedure that my daughter was having. So I've been off for 5 days, right? So in those 5 days off, what else can I do? Of course, I can't go get another job on my typical duty day. That's not allowed.
Right.
But when it comes to creating content, meeting people, networking, I have, that's why when I was in medical sales, my medical sales stuff was almost very entrepreneurial, even though it was medical sales and I worked for a company because I had to manage my own area. And that's leadership. So that's why I'm bringing up the leadership stuff, because I'm sitting here thinking about what you did in your career and going, okay, maybe I've expanded pretty good. Like I'm podcasting now. Like why am I still so focused? Like where can I jettison into? And what would you give for some advice of someone who is kind of in a position that I have, that they've expanded a little bit and they've gone out of their comfort zone and they've got this routine down with podcasting or whatever it is for their business? Like what advice would you give, not only myself, because I'm, your experience, 25 years of doing the voice or doing speaking gigs, you've got some ability to lead and teach. What would you tell other people out there that are in that area where they may feel that they have a small little niche, and how to get outside of that box and expand?
Wow, that's a big question. There are a few things. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being in a small box. In fact, as far as marketing goes, that makes it so much easier. I've got a friend he speaks about sales. That's it. He's a sales trainer.
Okay.
Well, there are a million sales trainers.
Yep.
Okay. His specialty is telephone sales. Okay, that narrows it down. Specifically, prospecting. So how to prospect on the telephone. And then he's also his primary expertise is financial services organizations, primarily credit unions. So it's like, so if you're a credit union and you want training on how to prospect on the he's the guy.
Gotcha.
He's the only guy. And it makes his marketing easier. He only has to market to those people. I've got another friend who's a speaker he's huge in the lumber industry, completely unknown outside of that industry, but he makes 7 figures a year and has been for 30, 40 years. Because that's his. So you don't have to be everybody. It's really helpful to pick a lane. I think the more important decision is what's the value that you bring. If you want to make more money, find out a way to create more value. That's what you've done in your way by because you do have several areas of expertise. You've got multiple podcasts. Now, I would argue that there's probably a connecting tissue among all 3 of them, leadership, that sort of thing. Although one of them is very, very highly specialized. What's the value? What's the unique value that I can bring to my audience? I think that's a very, very important thing. By the same token, we talked about how I was kind of narrowly looking at my experience. Don't go with your first assumption. Like if you think, okay, this is all I can do. Okay, so how much value can I bring? Think wider at first. Like, what is all of your experience? What's all your experience? And then think, okay, what do I want to do? If you've got the luxury, think about, okay, who are the kinds of people that I would like to hang out with? And is there a way that they can become my target market? So that ideally I'm only working with the kinds of people that I would love to work with. Now, that's a luxury not everybody has, but entrepreneurs have it more than most.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs,
exactly.
Entrepreneurs can choose, like, this is what I do and this is who I do it for.
Right.
We have the luxury of making that choice. And then there are other challenges, of course. Being an entrepreneur is tough. One of the things that it's taken me forever to learn. I mean, I learned it, but I didn't really internalize it, and I'm still struggling with it. It goes back to Gerber's The E-Myth about entrepreneurship, is that you have to treat it like a business from the very beginning. So many entrepreneurs that I see and that I work with, they start doing something because they love doing it. They love baking or flower arranging or speaking or whatever. And they start doing that. And the business stuff is just kind of like, oh, I guess maybe I should get a separate, bank account for this. And, oh, wait, I need to be a corporation or an LLC. And that almost seems like an afterthought. And, tracking the numbers, looking at the books, knowing how to read a P&L, knowing all those things, knowing how to do the marketing, setting up a database or a CRM or things like, those things are important. Now, they're not the fun, exciting. Nobody gets in.
It's not the glamorous stuff. It's not partying with Nirvana, right? No.
Right. No, it's not. Nobody gets into entrepreneurship so they can run spreadsheets.
Right.
But you've got to treat it as a business. It took me a long time to realize I'm not a speaker. I'm the CEO of a speaking business.
Okay.
I'm a business person, and entrepreneurs need to think that way, that you are the CEO of a blank business. You're not a gardener. You're the CEO of a gardening business. You're not a whatever you do. You're the CEO of a something business. You are a business person. You are running a business. You want to make a profit. I would encourage everybody to read the book Profit First by Michael, and nobody in the world can pronounce his last name. It's 1 million letters long, and it starts with an M, I believe.
I'll find it, and I'll put it on the screen in post.
Yeah. And basically, it is about paying yourself first. We talked about so many entrepreneurs, because they don't treat it like a business. They think, oh, I didn't make any money this month, I won't pay myself. So it becomes this roller coaster. One of the important things is, no, pay yourself every single month or every 2 weeks, whatever you do, even if it's only $100.
Okay.
Even if it's $50, it's like make it like, okay, that's going to happen. So you get into the habit of, because otherwise it's too easy to just, well, I guess I'm just not going to pay myself ever. And relying on luck as opposed to discipline. Entrepreneurs hate the word discipline, but there is a discipline.
There is a discipline. And it's just so great. I mean, I'm sitting here smiling. I don't know if you just started seeing me smile as you explained that last section, but I'm sitting here smiling because I am subject to that issue. I have never said, you know what, every Friday or every other Friday, I'm just going to at least give myself $100 from my business account. I do have an account. I do have a CRM. I do have some of those things that you talked about, and I did do that absolutely in post. I did that way after I decided to start doing stuff. The closest thing, the closest thing that I ever did to become a business was when I first started my voiceover business. I knew because of my last name, and it's not a stage name. A lot of people think that my last name is a stage name. It's not. But I knew with that last name from when I was younger, and people who remembered me 20 years later and stuff, that it's very important that because of voiceover, you're putting your voice out there. If I put out crap in the beginning, people would say, hey, Goodknight puts out crap. Like, oh, I've heard that guy's voice and it's horrible. So I had to invest in my business. I had to reinvest in my business. I had to audition, and I treated it truly like a business. I started an LLC like pretty early on. I got my own website, kylegoodknight.com. So I did all of that stuff then, but I didn't do what you just mentioned. I did not do a paycheck. I just said, when it comes into my business account, it's there and I can use it once in a while. Did I transfer money over once in a while? Yes, but I never did it on the regular. And this is one great thing. This is why I love talking to other entrepreneurs on podcasts. I always get little nuggets from their world. And you just gave me like 3 in the last 10 minutes. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is important. Plus, if you know you're going to pay yourself, then you also realize, okay, I got to meet payroll. Even if payroll is only $100 a month, you can't slack, and especially set it up as an automatic payment. Like take it out of your control. Now, look, we all know that if things really get bad, you can always stop an automatic payment. But if it's an automatic payment, it just comes out, and it does give you a little bit of pressure. And entrepreneurs sometimes need that pressure. I mean, business owners who have small businesses, as opposed to entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, and small business owners are entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. But
if you've got staff, then you know about meeting payroll.
Right.
But if you're a solopreneur, it's very easy to forget that. But when you think of yourself, I'm the CEO of a blank business, what would a CEO do? Well, a CEO sets up payroll. I'm going to pay myself every that's the first bucket.
Yeah.
That's no matter what, that's the first bucket. I'm going to pay myself. Doesn't matter how much, it's the discipline, and then you can increase it over time or whatever. But again, it's getting that mindset. Not, I'm sure you found this too, Kyle. Almost everything, and this is one of the things I start with when I'm doing my keynotes about innovation and thinking differently, that the first step there is a mindset. So many people, roughly 4 out of 5 people, 80% of the population globally, doesn't think they're creative, doesn't think they're even a part of the conversation. That's for other people.
Yeah.
That's for Steve Jobs. That's for, that's not for me. That's not my job. That's somebody else's job. So the first thing is like, well, you've got to change your mindset about it, because it's not a velvet rope. It's an open club. We're all welcome to come play in that playground, but you've got to get that mindset first. So many things start with a mindset. So when you're an entrepreneur, getting away from the mindset that, oh, I'm a keynote speaker. No, I'm a business owner. I run a business, and keynote speaking is my product, is one of my products. I do consultations and consulting and works, all those other that's where multiple streams of income come in, book sales, all those kinds of things that come with it. But I'm the owner of a business, and I have these products. I am not my product, which is a weird thing to say, because as a speaker, I'm the one who goes up there on stage, but I'm a business owner, and these are my offerings. This is how I can provide value to people.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're blowing my mind, because I'm sitting there like, my mind, I don't think I've ever had a guest where my mind has been racing as much as it is right now. Because I consider myself, I'm self-proclaimed ultra creative. I have a handyman background and been swinging the hammer since I was old enough to hold one with my dad. And I've always been able to build stuff, and I've always been able to walk into a room and see the finished product. And that's the same way that if I have to build a PowerPoint for an EMS conversation, or even the times that I've built my business podcasting, pitches and webinars, I kind of see the end result, but then never could figure out how to get to the end result where it actually made me money until more recently, of course. And, my podcasting background and failures, because 100%, I had a lot of pitfalls in the beginning stages of podcasting. Right. Yeah. So talk about any type of pitfalls that you've had in the speaking world that you learned from and were able to put back into your business.
Well, there were a number of them. First and foremost was that whole roller coaster of paying myself, because the speaking business is, it's not a steady business. There are certain months like May and October tend to be very, very busy. There are a lot of conventions, a lot of conferences, a lot of annual meetings happen in those months. Summers tend to be emptier. November and December and the first 2 weeks of January, pretty empty. So it's a bit of a roller coaster business. Mm-hmm. And so, the first struggle was, okay, how do you even out as far as income, as far as revenue goes? How do you even that out?
Right.
And there are a few ways to do that, but one of them obviously is, okay, so if I'm not going to get a lot of speaking gigs from outside in the summer, what can I do? Well, there's a few things. I can create my own. I can run my own workshops. And then people pay to come in and do that. Okay, that's one thing. I can offer other things. I can do online things. I can develop courses and online trainings and things like that. There are other things that I can do to do that. So it's just thinking about that. The challenge is to think about those before it becomes a crisis.
You plan your work and work your plan, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. I got my pilot's license a long time ago, and during pilot training, where I was, getting pilot training, lessons and everything, one of the constant refrains. So I'm left seat, the pilot in command, and the instructor is on the right, in the right seat, and one of the constant refrains is, if the engine were to go out now, where would you land?
Yeah, where we? Yeah.
And then occasionally he would just shut the engine off without telling me he was going to do it. And it's like, oh,
Oh,
okay, now
okay.
we really. But it's always that. Even now, when I'm in a in a commercial aircraft, which I am all the time.
Sure.
If I've got a window seat, I'm until we're like at 30
Like,
seconds
oh,
out,
if this goes out, I can tell the pilot where to land. Yeah.
I'm always looking out where those little airports. Where there's a field. Which way is the wind blowing? I mean, it's so it's like what would I do if? And there was one time when I was flying solo. I mean, it was just me in the plane flying solo. I'm taking off in the San Juan Islands that go over the Pacific Ocean up here in the Pacific Northwest. And at about 1,200 feet up, which is not terribly high, the engine cut out.
Oh,
it's like, and my training just
kicked in.
And obviously here I am. So it all worked out. but it's because I was just, it was ingrained in me to play that over and over and over and over again. So it would behoove any entrepreneur. Look, we all just went through this 2-year pandemic where basically our businesses. I mean, I'm a speaker. My job is to get in front of large groups of people in person. Well, for 2 years, that was not a thing.
To go to Zoom, or try to reinvent it in Zoom,
Right. So I had to learn that technology. I had to learn Zoom. And just like you did with voiceover, I had to buy a microphone, have to buy you do that. So it would behoove any entrepreneur to think, okay, spend a little bit of time each week. I'm such an advocate of this. I espouse this. I teach this. I almost insist on it with my coaching clients. Is that you literally schedule time in your calendar? Because if you don't put it in the calendar, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen.
I agree.
Most people and entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs don't tend to be business people first. They tend to be passion driven first. The fun stuff. The doing the flower arrangement, the baking the cookies, the going out and speaking, that sort of thing. So we don't tend to be that organized, and unfortunately, we tend to look at our emails first thing in the morning, and that sets our agenda. It's like, well, that's no way to run a life or a business. Nope. Somebody once said to me, they said, your inbox, your email inbox is nothing but a convenient storage place for other people's agenda. Your calendar is your agenda.
Yeah.
You own that. So I always tell people, book an appointment with yourself every week, an uncancelable, inviolable appointment with yourself every week, ideally an hour. You do that. And if somebody says, hey, Kyle, can you do this thing? Sorry,
I got something.
I'm booked.
So I think I actually have a couple of spots in my calendar that's kind of what I did, but I don't name it. Like, give me an example. Like, I think I should name that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I blow it off. It doesn't, sometimes I blow it off and be like, oh, I can still meet with you during that time. Don't get me wrong. If it's an important meeting or something, absolutely. But, or if it's a podcast recording or a meeting someone, but what would you suggest that someone names that part of their day?
Well, on my calendar, I call it, my acronym is ITT, and it stands for intentional thinking time.
Okay.
And I mean intentional thinking time. Look, there is a time and a space for meditation and just, letting your mind wander. Taking a walk, I just wrote about this on LinkedIn, is a great space for that. But intentional thinking time is this. You take an hour and you take a notebook or a pad of paper and a pen or pencil, and that's it. You do not, exactly.
I don't know if people were seeing me reach for stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm writing this one down.
It is. And it's important that you're doing this by hand. You're writing by hand. I won't go into all the reasons, but there are.
Oh, I know the reasons. I've done some stuff.
Yeah. There's all kind of brain science that you activate. Something like totally 26 different areas of the brain. Whereas when you're typing something, you activate none of them. So I mean, it really aggravates things. And it's intentional because I want you to go in with a particular question. And it doesn't have to be the same. It shouldn't be the same question each week. But let's say, okay, so you're a business person. You're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are business people, whether we know it or not. That's that mindset shift. So here's an example. Take one aspect of your business. Maybe it's like, the customer onboarding journey, or like, when they first see like my website, or whatever. Just take one aspect of the business. It could be your product, your service, one of your processes. It could be an internal thing. And just ask yourself this question. Just sit down for an hour and just ask yourself this one question. How can I improve X? Whatever you've chosen, whatever you decide to focus on for this particular hour in this particular week, how can I improve this by 1% in the next week? You're not saying, how can I double this? How can I do that? You're making it's, and then force yourself to come up with at least 10 answers. And what'll happen?
So you got to answer it, not just ask the question. Okay, that's challenging.
That's right.
Well, with AI, maybe that can happen a little bit faster, but yeah, no.
It can, but I'm encouraging people not to use it. Now, look, AI is an incredibly valuable tool. I use it every single day.
Yeah.
But you also want to be a thinker.
Sure.
And there's a number of reasons for that. But of course.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes my thinking happens as soon as this happens with my pillow.
Well, that's why it's also important to keep a pad of paper or a voice recorder. Like, if you've got a phone, you've got a voice recorder.
Record it, right.
Yeah, exactly. But that does happen. But come up with an intentional question. Maybe the question one week is, what would I do if? Or another question.
Back to the what if thing. What about landing the plane? Yeah, back to that.
Exactly. What about landing the plane? Or what will my clients / customers / patients / whatever your group is who you serve, what will they need 1 year from now that they don't even know that they're going to need? And how can I start building that this week? So you're thinking about things that most entrepreneurs don't think about. And if you force yourself to come up with, and it cannot be a yes or no question. Can I increase sales by 10%? Because here's the thing. Your brain is going to try and answer any question you put to it. That's what it does. So if you say, can I increase sales by 15%, your brain might say, nope, time for lunch. But if you say, how can I, or how might we, then your brain's like, okay, well, let's try and come up with something. So if you say, how can I improve X? How can I improve my voicemail message on my phone?
I had the new phone, and people call me and they start laughing at my voicemail, and I'm like, what are you laughing at? And they said, oh my gosh, your voice is so funny. That's such a great voiceover. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It was some sort of random Apple chosen voicemail that they think it's me, and they think it's hilarious. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run with it. And I still need to call it from another phone and say, what is everybody hearing?
Exactly. Or maybe do a little campaign for yourself. Plot out your customer journey from when they first discover you to you've delivered the product, the service, the whatever it is, and think and say, okay, here are 7 distinct spots on that journey, or 5, or whatever it is. And 1 week, pick one. Next week, pick the next one, and say, how can I surprise and delight my customer at this stage? How can I provide something that they go, oh, I didn't see that. That's different. And it doesn't have to cost money. It's just all it costs is 1 hour of intentional thinking time.
Yeah, ITT. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
ITT. And you force yourself to come up with at least 10. Ideally, I would say at least 20. You've got an hour. You can come up with 20.
Yeah, for sure.
And what's going to happen, and trust me, because I used to write jokes for a living, and you write a whole bunch of jokes, and some of them are complete crap. Most of them are in the middle. And in the middle works. It'll still laugh. It'll work. And occasionally you'll get the one that's like, oh my gosh, the game changer. Or this isn't it, but there's something in there that I need to dig into. And maybe that's one that you take to Claude or ChatGPT or something like that.
Right.
And say, hey, help me think through this, because I think there's something here. I just don't know what it is.
Expand it. Yeah. You be my canvas. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's that intentional thing and the key again, Kyle, is to put it on your calendar, and that is
going to be number one priority when I get off this call tonight. Is I'm going to because I've already got sections in my calendar where every day I see it and I'm just like, oh cool, I get to take a break here. But if I take even half of those and just say, you know what, change this to ITT time, and go from there.
And again, come up with a question. Ideally, go to a different spot. If you can go outdoors, great. Even if it's just like, a different place in your house.
Yeah, like someplace where you're not normally creating, like get out of the area where you can.
Exactly, because if a change of environment will tell your brain, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know quite what to do here, which is great. You want that because then it doesn't go into its same old patterns. And plus you're not tempted to like, oh, maybe I'll check email real quickly or something like that.
And that's a hard part too, because your phone's always chirping at you. So put your phone on silence and get into ITT. Yeah.
Put your phone on silent, get it out of your eyesight, because even if it's lying down there within eyesight, it limits. I mean, and studies have shown that over and over again. So and it's an inviolable appointment. If somebody says, "Hey, can you do something?" No, I've got an appointment from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Oh, what is it?
That's fantastic.
What it is.
That is like I said, I always talk about the nuggets that we learn from these podcasts, and that is a huge one. You've given plenty of nuggets. I kind of feel like I need to throw some money at you for this coaching session. Maybe we can come up with something else, but no. You did mention coaching.
The first one's on the house.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, the first one's always free right now. No, so you did mention something about coaching. Is that something that you want to tell if someone hears you talking and they resonate with you, is it something you want to share with them, or do you leave your coaching, because you never mentioned anything about your coaching, what did you call it earlier? Your product. You never talked anything about your coaching product on our pre-call. Just your speaking gig and that stuff. So is that something that you do often, or expand on that a little bit?
It is. I don't tend to do one-on-one coaching. Most of my coaching is corporate clients.
Okay.
And it's people at ICF, the International Coach Federation, or IFC, whatever it is, would not call it coaching because it's more consultative.
Okay. Okay. You did mention consultation earlier. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really consulting with teams within organizations about how can you develop a culture of innovation so that you're always one step ahead of the crowd, so you can really differentiate yourself, so you can really see around those corners and see what's going to be coming and create what's going to be coming and provide those things for your clients that they didn't even know that they were going to want.
So is your speaking engagements your lead magnet for the coaching?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
And this is going to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
In the speaking world, there's basically two kinds of speaking for money and speaking for marketing.
Okay.
And the people who speak for marketing specifically, basically they speak for free, but they get to pitch.
They get to sell on stage, right? Yeah.
They get to sell on stage.
Yeah.
That's not what I do. I do think of my keynote as marketing, but only in that people see what I talk about and then come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey, do you work with teams? Like, could you come in? And because my team needs to hear this.
Yeah.
Can you come in and work with us?"
Yeah.
That's what tends to happen.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather get that than "you were the greatest speaker we ever heard."
Yeah.
That's all fun and that's ego building, but I'd much rather have somebody say, "Hey, we
really want you to share more of your insights."
This is a big audience. Do you do like work with teams? Because we think this could be of value. And that's what I do primarily.
That's great. Well, you know what? We're about the time to close down. Typically, I don't like to take these super long because the ears can only withstand as long as the the earbuds are in. So, but it's, or whatever saying you want to say. But I'm so happy that we got to connect this way and that we reached out to one another when we were in another event together, and and I think we were in a breakout session, and it was like we instantly had you saw something in me and I saw something in you, and we literally, when we got back to the big group, we both sent each other a message, and I'm like, okay, it's a connection.
That's right.
And
let's connect.
Yeah. So it's a connection. We do our pre-call, which I firmly believe in. If you're in the world of getting to know people in this new form of networking that I call podcasting, at least my version of podcasting, Here's
what I really enjoyed about this. Yes, we had the pre-call, and we touched upon some of that.
Yeah.
But primarily because you're good, you're interested, you're curious about things, you know who your audience is. You ask questions and then we just kind of had a conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I don't like canned questions. I get people that ask me, like, "Can you send me a list of the questions you're going to ask me?" And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to ask you yet.
Right.
Like literally it will come from when you describe yourself. Like maybe I'll remember something from a pre-call, like, oh, I want to make sure I touch on that. You know, like,
Right.
I didn't get a chance to ask you about Bill Nye, but because you already had mentioned it. But I definitely, that was a part of the conversation. I was like, ooh, I'm going to make sure that he shares the Bill Nye story, you know, and how that all got started, because that is so amazing that Bill Nye was basically just a writer and stood up and said, I can help out for a few minutes. And it sounds so much like me that I'm like, man, I wonder if that ever would happen to me, like what would happen. I mean, and it has happened, like, especially when it comes to being at friends' houses and they start talking about how they want to remodel their basement and they start sharing. And I'm like, no, you don't want to do it that way. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, we would do it this way, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, why don't I hire you? So, I mean, I've had the same situations, not on a entertainment aspect, but with my voiceover stuff, I've been hired before because someone hears a little, joke of mine in a different voice or what have you. So yeah, but I get it. But
part of it is just always kind of having your radar open for opportunities, because it's a cliche, but opportunities are all over the place.
Yeah, they do. They come all the time, and the more you get yourself out there, the more opportunities come. And that's one thing that Bill and I both can attest to. There's been some opportunities even since January when I went to a medical convention and spoke there on a specific topic. I've been contacted by 5 or 6 people over the last 2 months about something else that they found out about me through research. It happens.
Yes, just those connecting those random dots. And as I say in my keynotes, you never know which dot's going to lead to the breakthrough.
That's right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on the Ignition Path and sharing all of those nuggets that you did. I'm sure there's many more, and this may be a reoccurring episode sometime. If you get some downtime from your travel and your coaching business, that you're like, you know what, let's just jump on with Kyle and talk about something. So I'd be totally down with that. But
that'd be fun.
Everybody, don't forget to subscribe, and share, and tell your friends about this. This is probably one of very few podcasts that I've had with people where I actually learned more than what I was expecting at all. So hopefully everybody listening learned something. I think they did. I'm actually going to re-listen to my own podcast just so I can hear everything that you said again, because people, this as a producer, when you're recording or you're producing, you're in work mode, and you don't you don't really hear and actually regurgitate and let things sink in. But then when you watch it back when it airs or later on in a recording, like you can with podcast, or once something's recorded, you're like, oh, I forgot that he talked about that, and that's a good point. Or, okay, well, there's something else that I want to make sure that I do differently, so absolutely going to be listening back to this podcast. I may just mute myself, but
well, Kyle, it was an absolute blast. I figured this was going to be a highlight of my day, and it's
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's why I texted you yesterday. I'm like, we still on for tomorrow? Because I've been looking forward to this conversation. So, all right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and sign off, and thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.